Visions fans, Ready Player Will here. Today we're doing the final part 3 of the Eliza character review. I did not forget about this, but now we've had a week of Arena, a week of Limited Guild Wars, a whole bunch of scenarios to stress test what Esper she does well with, what equipment she does well with. So now I have a lot of takeaways to show you that I honestly didn't really know a week ago. We're going to start getting into picking up where we left off for part 3. We're going to address some of the AP problems that she has, or potentially has, and then the Trust Stone recommendations, which ties into it, and then the Asper weapon and vision card synergies, of which I think there are some that I didn't realize how good they were, so I'm going to share them with you. Now, on the topic of the AP problems, I'm just going to go over a refresher on how you generate AP in total in the game and how this all ends up tying together. One of the things with Eliza, because she's not a very hard-hitting damage dealer, is essentially that you can't afford that much downtime of not being able to spam attacks, particularly because her attacks are so utility-driven. The moment you get stuck doing more basic attacks than you might like, the battle quickly goes downhill because missile users on their own typically aren't great carry damage dealers. So in terms of regenerating AP in a battle, starting AP matters, where if you look at your in-game character, they have a total amount of AP, and mages get 75% of that, red mages are 50%, and all other jobs get 18% of their total starting AP. You can also get your AP from using TP skill abilities, in which you get half of it. And then from basic attacking, now it depends on what angle you attack from. If it's a direct head-on, it's 8 AP. If it's enough a degree from the side, it's 14 AP. And if it's from the back, it's 20 AP. Most guild battles probably shouldn't expect to get back attacks, but for the most part, front and side are almost guaranteed all the time. And then finally, there's two other ways. So if you kill a target, you get 4 extra AP. And a really interesting thing, if you critically hit a target, you get 4 extra AP. This is extremely important for Eliza. So quick refresher on her skills. Again, not all of them are the cheapest. Maddening Arrows at 15 AP here. What I've found is that if you don't generate enough TP from your basic attacks, she ends up spamming this, which is fine. Can be great if she actually ends up proccing the Berserk, and she will do more damage upon follow-ups on them, but that's not really what makes her a great character. When we look at the TP generating side of things, though, only tracking techniques exists, and if you were to, in her base form, use this, you would only get 13 AP from it, and 13 AP isn't even enough to use any of these abilities. So just using tracking techniques is not enough AP in general to sustain throughout the battle. Now, obviously, you can fix this via TMR, like the Zizabels, where you just give yourself a gluttonous amount of AP. Nothing wrong with that, but this is some other ways to get around that if you don't want to be forced into that build and rotation of ability usage. So just taking a really quick sample build to give a general idea about AP overall, this is the Eliza that I was using for the last week in Limited Guild Wars. I've made some tweaks since then, but the whole point of this is really just to show you what the starting AP amount is. So she has 212 AP, certainly can go higher than that, but she starts off with 30 AP in this mock example. That 38 AP, what can you do with that? Well, if you use tracking techniques, that gets you back up to 51 AP, and what can you do with 51 AP? Well, she'll use her limit break, and then you're left with 8, and what can you do with 8? Basically nothing. It's why the acquired AP, which we're going to talk about right now, is so incredibly important. There's a wide variety of ways to get this acquired AP. So ignoring the AP generating TMRs, as we mentioned, the acquired AP stacks across various sources, and so you add them all up. And so exactly what that means is Diamond Coat gives you acquired AP of 30%. So doesn't the Orin glasses. You can technically also get AP up of 20% on a Trust Stone passive, but if you do, that will not stack with the Diamond Coat or the Orin glasses. It's the same kind of stat, but the rest of these do stack. So if you take the Last Well Vision card, which is almost a must in most ice parties because of the agility buff it gives, this is also acquired AP of 25. You also get the Fruit of Life Vision card that just dropped today, massively important vision card for Eliza. That's another 30 for the unit. Add them all up together, you get total acquired AP of 85%. Well, what does that 85% mean? It means, well, when you use tracking techniques, you now generate 24 AP instead of 13. That's a massive difference. Now, for the rest of the basic attacks, this is where things are going to become incredibly important. A basic attack from the front would normally generate 8. Now it generates 14, and if it's a critical hit, which Eliza is very much known for, and you really should be gearing for, that front attack is going to give you 18 AP. That means she can easily use Maddening Arrow every single time she gets a front attack. From the side attack, it's 29, which is still an immense amount. Back attack, 40, but you're not going to get that quite often. And there's more ways to improve this, so I'm going to segue very quickly and intertwine this with the Trust Stone recommendations. So kind of out of order here, I'm going to start on the right side, the offensive side here. What are my recommendations? Well, agility number 1 is always great for almost any character. The extra 6 agility you get can vastly change the outcome of a team fight. So that's definitely an A+ recommendation. But the other one to keep in mind here, and many people sleep on it, is the AP Trust Stone set. Most people lean toward attack in general, at least from what I've seen, but the AP set really is the best set for damage dealers. Having a couple extra 100 damage dealt typically typically isn't nearly as impactful as getting a whole extra ability or two out over the course of a battle, particularly for someone like Eliza, where all of her abilities are very much utility based. You don't need her to do that extra damage, you need her to drive that utility. So the big thing here is the increase of starting AP of 10%, which means she's going to start with more once you take the 18% of that total, but the decreased AP consumption of 10% is massive, and we're going to circle back around on that in just a couple minutes here. Now for the left side, which is the defensive side, you're going to think I'm crazy here in what I think the best Trust Stone set is, but a lot of people will have the HP set. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you recall from part 1, she has a relatively low amount of base HP, and so she's not going to get a ton of the 5% HP from this. The Elemental Resist certainly is nice, but she's still going to be relatively squishy overall. This is one of the few characters that I actually think crit evade might be a half decent one for. Again, the idea just being that you don't get critically hit by the enemy and can stay alive longer, particularly since we're seeing an uptick in those kinds of damage dealers. This is just here as an honorable mention. I don't actually recommend doing it as your primary, but the one that I do, and you're going to think I'm crazy, it's the first time I've ever recommended this. The TP Trust Stone set actually has a use right now. So one of the reasons why this has historically been not great is because most tanks and other damage dealers really do rely on survivability, even healers to an extent, where they have to move forward to their teammates to get in range to heal for the most part. But Eliza as a ranged hero, the goal really should be to keep her out of range of enemy damage. So to the extent that you need the defense or spirit or HP Trust Stone sets, she really shouldn't be taking that much damage anyway if you're using it properly. So you can afford to trade off that extra survivability for the extra 25% acquired AP here. Now, why is this important? You now get 110% acquired AP, and that changes a very important threshold. Now, when you do a basic attack from the front, and that's the one I want to focus on here, because that's the most common, at least the bare minimum you will ever generate from having to attack an enemy, you will now get 20 AP with a critical hit. What does that mean? That means a critical basic attack will ensure she can use her triple hit ability right after. Now this applies whether or not you have the AP Trust Stone set on or not, the one we mentioned a few slides ago. This is just a TP set. This is what's incredibly important, because if you don't meet that threshold of 110%, then with that critical hit, she's going to end up spamming Maddening Arrow in between, and she's never going to be able to work her way back up to some of those higher, more impacting abilities like the defense break if she's confined to the front attacks. Now, if you want to put her on steroids, this is not necessarily recommended, but really just for the sake of stress testing, the Astrologian Vision card also goes in here because we have yet to put any acquired AP on the Subvision card. If you add that in, it gives another 28% acquired AP, and what that means is basic attack from the front will give you 23 AP. Now 23 AP, if you recall, is one less AP than her defensive break ability. But this is where the AP Trust Stone set really comes in clutch. If you re-examine these abilities and recall that the AP Trust Stone set bonus is reduced AP consumption of 10%, you've now reduced all the cost of these abilities. So if you have that AP set on, that defense break ability, which is a great ability to use to continue the imperils, now only costs 21, which means you can quite easily use it as a follow-up attack from a basic attack from the front. Now, if you go, again, from the side, you're going to get a lot of extra AP. It's not going to matter, but you can't always rely on that. But the bottom line is there is a very important threshold to be met here. However you make the math work, that the last thing you want to do is have her use a basic attack and then use Maddening Arrow, and then use a basic attack and then use Maddening Arrow, and just rinse and repeat. Maddening Arrow is fine, but that's not the ability she's meant to be spamming. If you can start off the fight, use your limit break, do that big ice imperil, then throughout the next rotation you have the ability to use a defense break, and then a triple hit, and then a basic attack, and then a triple hit, then a basic hit. That's going to do so much more damage, where the triple hit obviously is going to also decrease the enemy AP, which means they're not going to be able to use as many abilities, which means Eliza can stay alive longer because she's not going to get hit by as many abilities because the enemy doesn't have the AP to do it. And obviously the triple hit means that her ice teammates will follow up with extra damage. So that's where this is super important to do the AP management correctly. There's a lot of ways to get to this end result, but this is just a few ways to at least to highlight what some of those acquired AP mean. Now we get into the Esper optimization. This is where I've learned a lot over the past week. There's a handful of Espers that actually go really well with her. Now, number one, Brachiosaur does a really good job from hedging one of her resistances, where the 15% magic resist will make her plus 5%, where she is innately minus 10% to magic. But other than that, this will obviously help with the crit rate to ensure that she always hits that crit rate, the 15 missile attack, great agility, and starting AP. There's a bunch of other great Espers that do different kinds of things for her damage output, though. Chocobo is definitely more high octane, where you get more missile attack, you get more of an attack percentage bonus, 15% versus 7%, relatively the same agility, little less starting AP, not a big deal, but you still maintain the crit rate while getting slash resistance instead of magic resistance. So this one's also very much matchup dependent. Now another Esper recommendation, MAX Maniple really came into the forefront of the testing, where if you have Brachiosaur or Chocobo on and you want to use her Trick Lancer subjob, she will almost never use that long-range pierce ability to immobilize enemies. The reason being is that all the modifiers from the missile attacks will in most instances do more max damage with her missile attacks than she would with her pierce attacks. Well, MAX Maniple can change that for two reasons. Number one, it's 25 ice attack, so it's not confined to missile, but number two, there actually is 15 pierce attack on here as well. So if you wanted to lean into this one and still maintain some of that slash resistance and crit rate and attack, this certainly is the Esper to be using if you want to lean into the Trick Lancer subjob just a little more in a variety of different situations. If you don't have this on, she will almost never use that ability, even if you have Trick Lancer equipped. Now, some other great options. Odin is obviously a go-to for the accuracy. You can do the missile or slash resistance. Human Killer is applicable to both of those jobs as well. So this is kind of like MX Maniple, where it shares the multiplier. And obviously the fastest Esper at 20 agility, and then the highest starting AP at 44 as well. And then finally Marilith, kind of the same idea, where you get the missile attack, the regular attack, the 22 accuracy. This one has some ice resistance, where if you're trying to hedge your survivability just a little bit against those mirror matchups of ice units, but definitely a little lower on the agility and AP side. But overall, there's a decent amount of Espers to pick from here that's going to utilize her kit and her stats in very different ways. Then we get to the vision card optimization. Hands down, the best vision card is no doubt the one released today, Fruit of Life, where not only great stats here for the attack and the dexterity, but this is where the extra 30% acquired AP comes in. The accuracy, she gets 5% extra agility off of this, and if you recall from the base stat overview in part 1, she does have very high base agility, so this will scale very well for her, in addition to the attack. And then missile attack, crit rate, which again, you want to hit those crit rates every time, and then 20% slash resistance. So this is an absolutely fantastic card for her and whatever ice unit she's using. Now, although that's the de facto best card for her main slot, there's obviously other cards that work really, really well that you're going to want to weave in here, whether it's on her or a teammate, no matter what. Now, obviously, Last Well card, as we mentioned earlier, is one of those where you'll get the attack, little extra defense. You also get the agility and the acquired AP and Human Killer, which will apply to all her abilities. So whether this is on her or teammate, regardless, really great card that you want to weave into what she does. In terms of resistances, there's no doubt the two best cards for the ice units are Dark Odin for that 20% single unit resistance, but this will also give her some extra agility, spirit, human killer, and HP, all amazing things. The MAX Maniple vision card is also a really good one, where the unit effects are only generic to ice, so they will apply to Eliza, which means ice attack, HP, missile resistance, regular attack. Again, extra 4 defense here, but this is the 20 AoE resistance and the crit rate, which again, she's going to desperately want to need so you can ensure critical hit rates every time, but this also has the pierce attack, which will certainly help the Trick Lancer subjob, if that's a route you want to go with her. In terms of some of my favorite sub-vision cards so far, I'm definitely a fan of Fenrir. She does end up getting an extra point of agility. She gets the HP, magic resistance for her in the party, which again, she's weak to magic resistance, but you also get the valuable attack buff here as well in the sub-vision card slot. And Sharpen Concentration isn't a bad one either, where this gives her some accuracy externally and that you might not need it from an Esper or a piece of equipment, but also still gives the missile attack and the human killer. So as a sub VC, definitely not the worst one either. Now we get into weapon optimization. This is where things get super interesting because bows, by and large, do have a variety of different uses. Now, one of my favorites for her is the Platinum Bow of the extra defense penetration of 20. It's got a fair amount of crit rate here if you want to go for the build. Assault is certainly not a bad option either, but this will get her up to 60% defense penetration, so it will amplify her damage dealing quite a bit, at least against those physical oriented tanks. The Killer Bow is also another great one. Again, decent enough attack on the assault build. The 25 crit rate is out of this world bonkers good for her, while still giving the missile attack of 15. The new bow that came out, Cataract, I don't love. This one to me is really niche for making sure that you have the counter chance not activating, because you do technically get less modifiers here on the missile attack, probably less damage than the other two bows, and quite honestly the stats are good, but they're not as good as some of the other ones. So this bow's good, but I really think this is for the counter chance when you're really trying to hone in on making sure someone doesn't hit reflex or some other kind of really important counter ability. Other than that, I think the other bows tend to be better than this overall. Just a very quick note, my least favorite bow, I don't think this is a good bow for her at all, is the Bow of Divine Flame. To me, this is the kind of bow that after 3 turns, not only does she not get a lot of HP from this, but it is only for 3 turns. And typically, things that last only 3 turns means the fights need to happen relatively quickly and end relatively quickly, which usually means smaller maps. And if you're on a smaller map, well, Eliza's not your girl. So this bow, I'm really not a fan of for her. She's not bulky enough to wield it. But there's 3 bows here that I really outside the box that I've been able to have some fun with over the last week, which is why I've wanted to wait that little bit extra. There's 3 TMR bows that work really well. And for those of you that haven't figured out yet why TMRs are great weapons after the Trust Stone system has been released, is because every Trust Stone has a certain set of attack or magic stat on it, right? Well, when you put 3 Trust Stones on a piece of equipment, it's going to bump up its attack total stat, but here's the problem. When you're looking at your 3 equipment slots, it only takes the highest of the attack stat on one and it halves the second, which means if you have a regular bow equipped like the ones we just saw, that means your TMR is going to essentially have the attack stat halved. Well, that doesn't happen if you use a weapon as the TMR instead. You will retain the full attack of the weapon and the attack stats from the Trust Stone. So there are a lot of instances for characters that tend to base attack above average compared to some other characters where the TMR weapons are really interesting because they have a lot of unique effects. And as we're about to see here, I am a fan of the Assassin's Bow of the Unfeeling. Maybe not the greatest stats in the world, but 15 accuracy, 10 crit rate, but this is the 15% chance to inflict doom. In a meta right now where there's a lot of healing, sustainability, the ability to just insta-kill someone after 4 turns definitely has its value, particularly in battles where they just go on for a long time. This is one of those things where you're going to have to play with the faith values, though, where this 15% chance is taking into account the 97 faith or the 50 faith. So if you are relying on the status effect, you will need to bump her faith up, which should help the Berserk status effect as well, but she's going to take more magic damage because of it, which is your weakness, so real big trade-off there. But another great bow that I genuinely love is the Hunting Bow. Now, this is for evasion metas. Now, this is 20% chance to decrease the evasion rate of 40% for 3 turns. And that 20% is regardless of faith. That is just a straight-up chance. And this bow overall does have great stats. 152 attack is no joke for a TMR weapon like this. 20 accuracy is also no joke. So this is a really great bow for when we get back in those evasion metas. But finally, my favorite bow that I've been using is the Glacier Bow, where this has only an 82 attack stat, but the ice attack of 15. What I really like about this bow is when you properly combine it with the right Trust Stone, with the right passives, and particularly the passives. So whatever right side Trust Stones you end up choosing, whether it's AP or Agility, or if you want to go attack or crit rate, or whatever you want to do, you can put 2 passive abilities on it. Missile attack up and missile resistance piercing rate up. Those 2 passives will also stack here with the ice attack of 15. What that means is you're going to get a total modifier of 25 in addition to an extra 10% missile resistance piercing. So I like the ability to put this on this bow and then use the equipment slots for other extra modifiers like the Prompt Overspan, which is Human Killer 15, like the Alexandrite Ring, which is going to bump up her accuracy and you won't need it anywhere else on her kit. Or you can play with some more other accessories that, like the +6 Jeweled Ring, which gives you an extra 5 AP upon critical hit. That will obviously throw the equation of this into a whole different tier as well. So being able to play with the TMR weapons is really, really big for Eliza overall, where the utility side of things, which these lean into, is definitely right up her alley. But that is the Eliza Part 3 review in a nutshell. Hopefully this is informative, really will help you make your Eliza work to the next level and get the maximum value out of her. This is a lot of fun doing. I do appreciate your patience in getting this third part out, but it's important to get right. And I obviously want to aim to give you the highest quality review and insight possible. So taking that little bit of extra time to actually use her in game and see some real-time results really went the extra distance to making sure that this is properly done. So thanks for watching, everybody. I will talk to you all soon.